Welcome guests to our webinar. We are back at it. I'm going to spotlight our three panelists so that we can all be seen. There we go. All right. Welcome everybody to our WhyTry webinar. This is a part of our ongoing series of webinars to provide our network of friends and colleagues with insight and strategies and information, mostly around the topic of resilience. My name is Jason Johnson, and I represent the WhyTry organization, which is the organization that has been hosting these webinars now for the last year and a half. We recognize some names on here. Thrilled to have many of you back, and hopefully we have some new people here that this is their first webinar as well from us here at WhyTry. And so before I introduce our guests and the topic, let me just address a couple things for those that are new. I represent the WhyTry organization. We are an organization that teaches resilience and the skills and sources of resilience to organizations throughout the country and actually throughout the world. We have we've got spaces in the United Kingdom and Australia, and then all 50 states. We've been around for about 20 years, and over the years, we've built out a really nice network of incredible educators, mental health professionals, and individuals in general that are just interested in the topic of resilience. And so when the pandemic hit, we started doing these webinars to try and stay in contact with our group of friends and colleagues. And it's turned into a really fun thing for us organizationally. Hopefully it's been a meaningful and a useful thing for all of you as well. And so what we typically try to do is bring in content experts or field experts on different topics and just kind of have an informal discussion about the topic at hand. And so today's no exception. We have a couple field experts with us today. This one's fun for me because these are two people that I consider good friends, and I'm excited to present some material with them. We're going to be a little bit more, I think, tools and strategies focused today, and we actually have some pretty exciting material to share with you. So our topic at hand today is going to be around resilience, specifically strategies to help motivate students and their families and foster resilience. Our guests that we have here are, let me make sure I introduce them properly. First of all, we have Mr. Bruce Bushnell, who I am thrilled to have with us. Bruce Bushnell has centered his career around promoting youth success. He's an award-winning school counselor. He was named the Counselor of the Year for the state of Utah. He was honored at the White House, receiving national recognition for his counseling interventions. Bruce has been a member of the Executive High School Relations Board, Senior Vice President of the Alpine Counseling Association, and Vice President of the Utah Counselor Association. Bruce now helps youth succeed by presenting passionate WhyTry keynotes and trainings across the country. As an advocate of the program from its earliest days, Bruce has been a key contributor in developing many of the WhyTry learning activities, which are proven to help youth develop the social and emotional skills necessary to reach their goals. Welcome, Bruce. We are thrilled to have you.
Excited to be here. It's great to be with Jason and Corey. It's great to be back.
Next, we have, I'm going to introduce him, even though we don't see him on here right now. He had just a little bit of a computer hiccup. He should be joining us back, but I'm going to introduce him anyway because I'm operating on good faith that he's going to make it back into the Zoom. We will be joined by Mr. Corey Anderson. Corey has spent nearly 2 decades as an educator, beginning as a teacher and then as an administrator. He's been an assistant principal at a middle school, and he's served as principal of 2 different elementary schools. Corey helped pioneer and start one of 2 public STEM programs in the state of Utah, and helped consult with the State Office of Education on creating STEM standards for schools that would eventually be adopted by the STEM Action Center. Let's see. Also, during his tenure as an elementary school principal, Corey oversaw behavioral units and led his school in implementing social and emotional programs and STEM activities. In 2019, he joined the WhyTry team as a trainer and director of curriculum development after using its social and emotional tools for close to 10 years in his administrative duties. Welcome, Corey. We're thrilled to have you.
Thanks. I'm glad I made it back. Computer shut down, but I'm back.
Your tech working okay now?
We'll see. We'll cross our fingers.
Okay, excellent. And then I am Jason Johnson. As I mentioned, for those that have been on webinars here before, you've probably seen me. My background is I'm a school psychologist. Came over from I left the world of public education and joined the WhyTry organization about 6 years ago. Really tough decision at the time. I loved what I did, but this has been an awesome opportunity to collaborate with educators and mental health professionals throughout the country on a topic that I'm very passionate about, the topic of resilience. That's where my personal research has been. I've been published on the topic of resilience, and it's something I care very deeply about, and hopefully can contribute some passion to on this topic. And that's really what we're going to center our discussion around today. Now, one last thing before we jump into the material. Now, by the way, Cynthia, I just got feedback from somebody that the volume's a little bit low. I don't mind doing a quick tech check. Tell me in the chat, is the volume okay? Can you hear me all right? Okay, good. So for the individual that sent us a note, there may be a setting on your computer. Thank you. And thank you for the feedback on that. That's always one of the tricky things with Zoom and Zoom webinars and trainings is that you got to trust the technology a little bit. Next thing, tech-wise, is we would invite you all to make a slight adjustment. Open up your chat tool right now, and you'll see right above where you type a message into the chat, it says to, and there's a little drop down arrow that says who you're sharing your message with. If that's not currently set to everyone, we would invite you to consider adjusting it so that you're sharing your message with everybody. That helps make the discussion in the chat feel a little bit more like a group discussion. And it's not uncommon for some really good ideas to be shared in the chat as well. And we love it when you can see one another's comments. So make that adjustment. After you make that adjustment, type in some type of welcome message. Good morning, good afternoon, hello. Say hi.
How about an emoji that how they're feeling today?
Yeah, or give us an emoji of how you're feeling today. Go ahead and light it up. Sharon, I can relate. Oh, the emojis.
Cora,
Oh.
What is that emoji? I gotta zoom in.
Oh,
that's funny.
All right. Well, let's get into it. We're going to talk about resilience and specifically some tools to help you, I think, teach and understand resilience with your kiddos and the families that you serve. And we've got some, I think, pretty exciting material that we want to share with you. If you'll stick around to the end, we'll let you know how to access some of this material that we're going to show for you. Just a little bit of background. So organizationally, some of you are familiar, but some of you aren't. The WhyTry organization, we do have curriculum and training that we provide that teaches resilience, a resilience approach and resilience model that you can share with your kids. at the core of that is a model of resilience that we're kind of built around. I'm going to give you just a brief review of that. And what I want to do, I'm going to model for you a simple object lesson that you can do. That's one of my favorites to do to help introduce the topic of resilience to your kiddos. I'm going to introduce the overview of our model of resilience. Then I'm going to throw it over to Bruce, and Bruce is going to do a walkthrough of a lesson that we do to teach one of the sources of resilience that can be really effective with kiddos. And then what we have as part of a suite of material within our toolkit is we actually have also a parent resource, a family resource that you may have heard us reference before in some of our webinars. We're going to have Corey actually demonstrate how to use this parent guide to resilience. It's a really, really handy tool. We've gotten great feedback on it. And then at the end, we'll tell you, we want to share the parent guide with everybody. We want to get it in your hands and also give you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the kind of the foundation that the parent guide to resilience is built on, because some context is kind of important around that. So with that, let's jump right into a discussion about resilience, which is one of my very favorite topics. I did a little humble brag. I don't know if you caught, so I'm going to do it again just because that's how humble brags work. This has been my personal and professional passion for over a decade now, and I did end up getting published on the topic of resilience. It's something that I've really tried to explore at an academic level, but also at a really practical level. And that was one of the things that I think really attracted me to the WhyTry organization early on before I ended up joining the organization. Was I felt like we had some common views on the topic of resilience. So I want to do just a little mini walkthrough discussion on resilience, kind of model how we can talk about it with kids. And then, as I mentioned, share with you a little kind of a fun object lesson that we do to introduce it. And then I'm going to throw it over to Bruce. Now, if you've been on these webinars before, you've heard us reference the WhyTry approach. And the WhyTry approach is kind of this specific model that lies at the center of how we deliver WhyTry material. And I think it's actually a really transcendent approach that can benefit any curriculum or any intervention that you deliver. But it's built on something we call the new 3 R's. And the new 3 R's are, as you can see here on my screen that I'm sharing, relationship plus relevance, which gives us the 3rd R, which is resilience. And it kind of functions like a mathematic formula. When you build healthy relationships with your kiddos and you deliver content with relevance to their lives, then the natural byproduct that comes from that is this concept of resilience. Now, we talk about it at a kind of a grown-up level oftentimes, and sometimes it even feels abstract to grown-ups. Well, this is a topic we can also introduce to kids, so we want to make sure that we're talking about it in a way that is relevant to our kids' lives as well. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page and give you kind of the basis for the WhyTry approach to resilience. So first question, I'm going to ask you to respond in the chat. When you hear the word resilience, what's the first word or phrase that comes to your mind when you hear the word resilience? Go ahead and type it in the chat tool. All right, we got bouncing back, power, strength, self-care, overcoming. This is awesome. Perseverance, lots of votes for bouncing back, perseverance, strength. Perfect. So what you're listing are the ingredients of resilience. These are what kind of make up, these are the individual parts of resilience. When we talk about resilience, or when researchers talk about resilience, it usually starts with like one common question. And it's usually kind of an exploration of individuals' response to challenges. And so it typically starts with this type of question. Somebody wondering why One individual will take their challenges, give up, begin to hurt themselves and others. And another individual, in spite of their challenges, will continue to work hard and try to be better each day. And the big question that resilience researchers are always exploring is this. What's the difference between those two? The difference is in that moment, one individual is demonstrating resilience and the other one isn't demonstrating as much resilience. The other big question that researchers are trying to answer is this, and I'll throw it out to you. Respond in the chat. What do you think? Is resilience something that you're just born with, or is it something that you can teach? Cast your vote. So you're using good deductive reasoning to say we're at a resilience workshop. Yeah, it can be taught, which is accurate. For those that said both, that is, I guess, technically the most accurate answer. We do know that some individuals are born with a more natural predisposition towards being resilient than others. I see this in my own children. They respond differently to one another in certain situations where one may show more resilience than the other in that situation. So some are born with a more natural predisposition, but one of the really key pieces that the research shows over and over is that resilience can be taught. The godmother of resilience research is a woman named Ann Maston out of the University of Minnesota. Her research shows, she describes resilience as an ordinary phenomenon, and something that essentially all humans have access to. So for us as educators or therapists or professionals or paraprofessionals, that's a really key point, because what it means is that every kiddo that we work with, or every grown-up or adult we work with, client we work with, has the seeds of resilience in them. That's really significant. The other piece that's come out of the resilience research is that resilience can actually be increased, taught, influenced, and strengthened. So that's really critical for us as adult facilitators as well, because that means not only does every kid we work with have the seeds of resilience in them, it also means that if we understand the right formula or approach, we can actually help them increase or improve their resilience. And that's really, really massive, because you know as well as anybody, for a lot of these kids that we're working with, they're dealing with, their reality is very, very big, complex challenges that we may not be able to eliminate in their lives. But resilience isn't about eliminating all of their challenges. It's about helping them change their relationship to their challenges. And so the approach to resilience is really, really important. Now, what we like to do, by the way, we wrote a book, helped our founder, Christian Moore, about 6 years ago, write a book called The Resilience Breakthrough. Here's kind of the official WhyTry definition of resilience. And I think it hits almost all the ingredients that you mentioned earlier. The ability to bounce back when you have every reason to shut down, but you fight on. Resilient people have both tapped and untapped reserves, enabling them to overcome and thrive as they face setbacks, challenges, and fears of daily life. And my favorite word in that whole definition is the word thrive. That's what separates resilience from a lot of its individual parts. It's one thing to endure. It's one thing to survive. It's another thing to actually thrive amidst adversity. And that's really the key that we're trying to help individuals with when we talk about the WhyTry model of resilience. We're trying to literally help kids and grownups change their relationship to their challenges, so that they can ultimately thrive. So let me do a little kind of a fun little demo. I'm going to go back to this idea of two individuals experiencing a challenge. Why will one respond to another, or why will one respond to it different than the other? And I'm a big basketball fan. I've coached basketball for, I don't know, pushing 20 years now in different capacities. So I'm going to do a basketball object lesson. And this is one I do with kids of all ages. I do this with grownups, kind of a fun model to help introduce the idea of resilience. So I'm going to adjust my camera here, and I don't go anywhere without some basketballs. It just seems like a good thing to be prepared with. And I've got here 2 basketballs, And I'm going to ask you to respond, engage just a little bit with a couple of the questions. So these two basketballs that I have represent two individuals. And as you can see, these basketballs look the same. That's intentional. That's to illustrate that these two symbolic individuals are very similar. We'll assume that they are similar demographics, similar age, similar socioeconomic status. We'll assume they live in a similar neighborhood, and that we'll assume that they've had similar challenges in their life. So what I'm going to do, I am going to replicate these two individuals experiencing a challenge in life, because resilience is all about how we respond to challenges. So the way I'm going to demonstrate them experiencing a challenge, I'm going to stand up and drop them both at the same time. And I want you to be good observational scientists and observe how they respond and see if they both respond to this challenge the same way. So I'm going to adjust my camera first so that you can see the floor there. There we go. And now we're going to replicate a challenge. Two individuals experiencing a challenge. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, in the name of science, we're going to do this a second time just to make sure there wasn't a fluke. Go ahead and observe and see what you notice about how these two individuals respond to a challenge. All right. What did you notice about these two basketballs' response to a challenge? Did they respond the same way? Exactly. Perfect. Different levels of bounce. Now, what do you think would account for the difference? Why would one bounce more than the other? More or less air. So there was more of something in one that made it bounce more than the other. So this is where we make the connection. Part of the WhyTry approach that we teach people throughout the country involves using activities and object lessons and processing them back to concepts that we're teaching. So we want to connect this lesson back to resilience. So one of them bounced more because it had more of something inside it than the other. And you identified that as air. So the air, if the basketball represents people, the air represents resilience. Resilience is that thing that helps us bounce back from challenges differently. Let's process now. First of all, anybody ever tried to play basketball with a semi-flat basketball? It's definitely not fun. You bounce the ball to the ground, it doesn't come back to you. Very hard to do. Similarly, in life, if our resilience levels are low, it makes it hard to bounce back from challenges. Same question, how difficult do you think it is to manage challenges if you don't have resilience? Very, very tricky, very frustrating. Sorry, I'm going through these kind of quickly. I want to make sure I save time for Corey and Bruce. Out of curiosity, do you think it's possible for someone from a very difficult home environment to do well in life and be resilient? And if so, why or why not? I agree with you. It's absolutely, in fact, some of the most resilient individuals I've seen actually have come from the most difficult circumstances. And conversely, I've had high flyer kids that by most standard measures of success had been very successful, but the first time they ever experienced, breakup with a significant other, first time they experienced getting a B+ on their report card, they had kind of an emotional breakdown because they weren't very prepared to be resilient in the face of adversity. So here's the big question. Here's how we're connecting that concept back to some type of learning example. We use the term a lot, bouncing back, and I even use that in my demonstration. What does that mean to bounce back from a difficult challenge? When we describe bouncing back from challenges, what do you think that means? So Tamara says recovering. Oh, these are awesome. Thank you. continue to try, recover, not giving up, problem solving, those all then become the acts of resilience. So back to what I originally stated before, resilience is not about eliminating challenges. Resilience is about changing our relationship to our challenges. So when we talk about thriving amidst adversity, and we talk about a resilience model to help with that, what we're doing is trying to give kids skills to be able to bounce back when they do experience adversity, because the adversity is inevitable. And this is really, really vital. In fact, right now, probably more than I've ever seen in my career, resilience is really, really critical. So in our book, where we define resilience, we also provide a model of resilience. And we have a toolkit that teaches this. And as I mentioned, we also have a parent resource that we want to give you and tell you how to access. Corey's going to talk a little bit more about that. But in the book, we identify 4 sources of resilience. I'm not going to go into much detail at all, but the 4 sources are relational resilience. So resilience coming from connection with others. Street resilience. This is resilience that's kind of connected to positive identity when you learn how to channel pain and disrespect and convert it to productive energy. So like if you've ever been told you can't do something because you're blank and you've said, I'm going to prove them wrong, that's a form of street resilience. Resource resilience is all about problem solving and using resources we have access to problem solve. And then rock bottom resilience is connected to hope and self-efficacy. And that kind of rounds out our model. I'm going to throw it to Bruce now. And Bruce is going to demonstrate a little bit from the WhyTry approach on how we teach relational resilience, which is a really fun source to teach. And Bruce has got some great material to share with you. And a couple of you asked about access to the slides and the images. We're going to put a link where you can get in contact with us. And there's definitely some of the imagery that we have that we do have available that we can get you in contact with somebody to find out how we can get it to you. Bruce, you're up, my man.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Jason. That was a great frame of resilience. And you looked like natural with the basketball object lesson. That was great. Just to start out with, relational resilience is one of the 4 sources. And I think it's one of the greatest motivators there is, when you know that people count on you or need you or depend upon you in a positive way. So your greatest motivation comes from the knowledge that others depend upon. This is my family. I'd love to do a biography of each one of them, but we'll skip that today. But I want you to know I love them. And what keeps me motivated many times for me not shutting down when I have a challenge or a trial, which increases my resilience, is I know they count on me, and they also give me a lot of emotional support. I receive a lot of support from them. And you draw a lot of strength from emotional support of others when you know that others have got your back or encouraging you. With your youth, just one key adult that truly believes and gives that emotional support to a student goes a long way to helping them feel safe in the relationships, but also to increase their resilience. And so it's critical that we make sure that we give that support to our students. And Jason already mentioned it. You realize your greatest power comes from human connection, the ability to interact with others and have meaningful relationships. So in WhyTry method, we use pictures or metaphors to help teach a concept or a principle. And to help teach relational resilience, we kind of center around birds. And I don't know how many of you are amazed at ever watching birds. My wife is a bird watcher. In our backyard, we have all kinds of bird feeders and bird baths, and birds are flying in all the time. It's kind of dangerous when you cut the lawn, but she has a book and she has binoculars and has identified 23 different species. And so she's really into that. And sometimes when they ask you if you would like to be an animal, I tell this to my students, what would you choose? I always choose eagle. I would like to have that power to soar, to have your eyes that you could see fish in the river from way up above, and that strength and power. So I would choose that. But today we're going to focus on geese. And I don't know, again, I mentioned, have you ever been amazed by just watching birds fly? Sometimes it's so graceful, and you can see all kinds of things if you take the time to really watch. Does any of you know in the chat window, have any of you know what do you call a flock of geese? Just see if anybody knows that. Can help me. Any ideas? Yeah, it's called a gaggle. Wow, a lot of you got that. I had no clue when I first started teaching this. Gaggle is a foreign word to me in a sense. But yeah, nice job for all of you to put down gaggle. As you watch, if you're around where you get a chance to observe geese, have you ever noticed geese flying? What shape do geese form when they fly? If anybody wants to respond, I think a lot of you know what that is, but most of the time it's a V, or at least some form of a V. And the big question, again, we could have further your students. When you're teaching this to students, you can have a lot of dialogue with them about it. But what I want to ask is, why do they fly in that V form? Any thoughts? What's the reason? Is there an advantage for flying in a V? Anybody have an idea? They support each other. Yeah, aerodynamics, wind resistance, all those things. If you ever, even you've watched the Tour de France, the key person they want to win usually is back in the group because he's conserving his or her energy before they make their move. And so it is aerodynamics. The lead goose or the ones up in front take on more of the wind resistance and allows the others not to maybe work so hard. A geese can fly 40 to 50 miles an hour. And they can cover a huge amount of the distance, and they'll keep flying for a long period of time without taking rest. But so they do it for the wind resistance. Now, I don't know if you've ever put your hand out when you're going in a car going down the freeway, or I put my head out before, and that's kind of dangerous. But you have a lot of resistance. It takes your hand will go back because the wind's coming on it really strong. And so we asked this question: what are some of the types of resistance you have in your life? I would like you in the chat window just to share what are some of the resistance, some of the challenges, the things that our students are facing. What are the headwinds that the students you work with are dealing with right now in their lives? Just share a few in the chat window. Racism, poverty, homelessness, trauma, all forms of trauma, alcohol and drugs. I've seen all kinds of things. Basic needs, single parenthood, poor, parents or lack of parents, sexual identity, bullying. Boy, there's a lot of things you're throwing up there right now. I can't keep up with them. Foster care, just, trying to discover their own identity, lack of support. There's a variety. And so we have resistance in all of our lives, and all of us that are listening today, we have our own things, that lack of school support. There's learning challenges. We could go on and on and on. But what really motivates you to move forward when you experience those kinds of challenges, resistance in your life, really many, many times it's the key people in your life. It's the relationships. It's those that support you and believe in you, see potential in you, or count on you. So you can have discussion, but it's a great motivator. I had a doctor, I had a foot operation, and they said they might have to amputate my leg. And what really motivated me to keep going, because I got depressed initially, was my family and those close to me. And that helped me to put the energy in to do some of the things I needed to do to overcome that. And I didn't have to go through that experience, but it really made a difference. And so what motivates you to, someone's put down determination. I like that. Thank you. But so when you have that resistance, it will motivate you when you have people that you can count on. Now, we ask this question to youth. I always find this an interesting question. Who depends upon you? Who counts on you? And if I tell them, if you're the lead goose, you're taking on that headwind, who behind you depends upon you. And when you ask that to students, they a lot of times struggle with that question. And who do you think, well, first of all, let's put it in the chat window. You're great. Who do you think, what would students say? Who depends upon them? Because sometimes they can't come up with very many things, but when they do, they will come up with siblings, loved ones, their pets, their friends. I would say true friends, parents, A lot of times I played a lot of sports, my teammates. I know here in WhyTry, I depend upon Corey and Jason and others in WhyTry. But that's a question you'll want to ask. But you know, when you know that someone counts on you, depends upon you in a healthy way, it helps foster greater resilience. I did a training in Michigan, and it was interesting. They had in an elementary school, every class had a pet, and they were having students take care of that pet because they wanted them to learn that the pet depended upon them. They learned responsibility and to be dependable. But they were really excited, the students, when they had their week, when they got to take care of the pet. But so who depends upon you? How can that knowledge that others depend upon you give you strength and motivation? And love to, if you want to type that in the chat window, that'd be great. But the knowledge that others do depend upon you will increase your resilience. And then the other question we ask, who supports you? If you were that lead goose, you got all these people behind you that are counting on you, supporting you. I don't know if you've ever heard a flock of geese flying over. Are they quiet? No, they make a lot of sound. They're honking their horns. I don't know, that's why they call them a gaggle. They're gaggling. I don't know if that's even describes that word, but they are, in the goose language, they say they're shouting encouragement up to the lead goose, saying, hey, you've got this. We got your back. We're back here. We're supporting you. Thank you. And does anybody know when that lead goose gets tired, what happens? When that one, they fall back and someone takes they switch out, they rotate, and they take turns. And so, when we support each other, we're there for each other both ways. Sometimes we're supporting, and sometimes we know others are counting on us, and they're supporting us. And so that's a big question. Who supports you? How can you draw strength from the support of others? And you'd have a lot of just that positive encouragement and support goes a long, long way in helping students to increase their resilience and to want to have that connection where they want to show up and be there and attend. And then when a goose goes down, almost always another goose, or sometimes more than one, will go down and stay. If they injure their wing or they get injured in any way, they're sick, whatever the reason, they will go down. We used to have leave no child left behind. Well, geese will not leave another goose behind. They are continually going down and supporting, and they do count on each other. So that's something we can draw. We can learn a lot from geese. And so this visual metaphor around this picture, we have activities, we have videos, we have journaling, we have art, and we go into more depth because I want Corey to have time for what he's doing. But it's a way for students to remember the concept that you're talking about. And so when the geese goes down, they'll stay with that goose that goes down until they can return to the flock. And then sometimes they do pass away. And so just the key concept, to keep it really simple for today, remember, relational resilience comes from the knowledge that others depend upon you and the support you feel from others. And it's not rocket science, but there's a lot of research that supports relational resilience. And I would like to just close. I have a video. Maybe some of you may have seen this, but I've seen it many times, and I get something new every time. I'm always inspired and motivated. It's about a dad and a son. Tell me in the chat window when we're done who depended upon who, and if you have anything that stood out, I call them golden nuggets from this short video. Let's watch it, and then we'll look at a few of the comments after.
This is where they go to prove their mettle. Endurance racers from around New England, ready to take on an Olympic distance triathlon. Those who finish will swim a mile, bike 24, and run 6 more.
All right, welcome everyone.
But one man's got a tougher challenge than the rest. And it's not because he's one of the oldest guys here. It's because Dick Hoyt will pull, pedal, and push his son Rick, who was born without the ability to move or speak. This is how father and son spend their time together, nearly every single weekend, going back 30 years. Dick and Rick Hoyt have completed over 240 triathlons, and on their lazier Sunday afternoons, over 68 marathons, the fastest in a time just half an hour off the world record. Yes, the real world record. They say Dick Hoyt could have been an elite endurance athlete on his own. Dick's not so sure.
I just don't have the desire to be out there running by myself. I think it's just something that comes from his body to my body, and it makes us go faster.
Are you trying to say that you run faster pushing Rick than if you didn't run with him?
Oh yeah, he inspires me and he motivates me. And he's actually the athlete, and he's very competitive. He wants to win.
To those who don't know better, it might seem an unlikely pair. The strapping Richard Sr., a retired lieutenant colonel with the Air National Guard, and his motionless son, Richard Jr., born 48 years ago. Rick had been strangled by his own umbilical cord during birth, severely damaging much of his brain. He would never walk, or talk, or, the doctor said, do anything at all.
He didn't give you any hope at all?
No, he didn't. No hope at all. Just cold, hard facts, he said. And my wife and I, we cried a little bit, but we talked and we said, no, we're not going to put Rick away. We're going to bring Rick home and bring him up like any other child.
All right, guys, almost to the top.
So this is how Rick Hoyt was raised, like his father had always planned, like any other boy in Boston, on sports. The doctor said it was all well and good, but we're still sure there was little going on in the silent boy's brain. His parents saw reason to disagree.
What did you and your wife know about your boy that the doctors didn't know and didn't see?
We could tell by looking in his eyes that when you were talking to him, he was looking right at you, and he was taking everything in. It's just that he couldn't answer you, he couldn't get things out.
Until a machine was invented that would put Rick to the test. Using a button with his head, the only part of his body he had any control of, 12-year-old Rick would finally get the chance to click out his first words, one letter at a time.
And everybody's betting whether the first words Rick is ever going to say. Well, his mom saying it's going to be, hi, Mom. Me saying it's going to be, hi, Dad. Well, the Boston Bruins were going for the Stanley Cup, and the very first words he ever said was, go Bruins. So you knew that he was following sports.
36 years later, Rick Hoyt still uses a version of that same machine. And though it takes hours just to write a few sentences, it gives him something he never had, a voice.
When I got my first communicating device, the feeling was joyous. Finally, I could share my opinions with everyone.
And it was something young Rick would tell his father soon after that would change everything. In 1977, he learned of a benefit run being set up to help a local athlete who'd been paralyzed in an accident.
I wanted to show this person that life goes on and he could still lead a productive life. That is why I turned to my dad and said we have to run in this race.
Dick Hoyt, 40 years old and out of shape, had never run more than 1 mile. No one expected him to push his wheelchair-bound son for 5.
When we came across the finish line, it's the biggest smile you ever saw in your life. Then when we came home from that race, Rick wrote on his computer, Dad, when I'm running, it feels like my disability disappeared.
That is inspiring. A lot of you already had a lot of comments and saying both ways. It was mutual. They each depended upon each other and gave emotional support to each other. Great example of relational resilience. I just saw another video of Rick, and he took 9 years with that machine. He graduated from Boston University. You never seen the excitement when he came across the stage with his cap and gowns. You might want to Google that, and it's so inspiring. He was so excited to have completed his degree. A great example of resilience. So I want Corey to have time, but they did depend upon each other. And it is, to me, it's very inspiring. Dick, and just pay tribute, Dick Hoyt just passed away the last couple of months. And they've been, they continue to do a lot more races than what we even saw here. But a great example. And there's all kinds of examples around us. You may be examples of your own family, or there's people that you are close to you, but we can foster greater resilience in our youth and in each other. And this is just one of the sources that we spend time helping students learn to acquire and where to find it, that relational resilience. So I'll turn the time back over to Corey and stop my share. And he's going to share a great tool with you. I think you'll be excited.
Great. Hey, great job, Bruce. I'm going to throw it over to Corey for you. I just want to throw one reminder out before Corey goes. What Corey's about to share, we want to get in your hands. And this is one part of a suite of material that we have available, but this is a parent and family resource that Corey's going to be highlighting that kind of helps teach and provide context for our resilience model, kind of directed towards supporting families and parents. Really cool resource that we have. Go ahead and take it away, Corey.
Okay, sounds good. You guys can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Bruce. It's such a great story, and it's relevant to what I'm going to talk about now and share with you for the last part of this webinar. So I'm excited to be here. Where to begin? So the resource that to just hit straight to it, the resource that I'm going to be sharing with you today and telling you a little bit about and demonstrating is something that WhyTry created. It's called the Parent Guide to Resilience. What I really love about this resource is, as an educator, as a principal, especially constantly, we had parents coming in, we'd be working with families, and we were always looking for resources that we could use and give to families and try to help them, develop skills and things that they needed in the home to try to improve their lives and help their circumstances. And I know a lot of you probably have different resources. Some of you are probably here from organizations that are a resource for families. And that's great. And this is another one. We were always looking for great things to give to families. And that's what I'm really excited about this. The purpose of this parent guide is to give educators and community organizations a resource that they can use and share with parents. It's not something that we share with parents. We don't reach out to communities and get this out there and try to get it in the hands of parents. Instead, we try to filter it through educators, because you're the ones that are developing relationships with them and need these types of tools. And the real purpose behind this is to help parents learn resilience in their own setting, as well as give them ideas on how to teach it to their children. You are going to be one of the principal people in your students' lives in teaching resilience. All of our curriculums that we share and use are meant for educators to teach resilience, but this is one that is specific for parents that hopefully they can use. So I want to give you a little tour of what this looks like and share a little bit about it. Hey, Jason, can you confirm that you can see my page?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. So what you're looking at is the front page of the Parent Guide to Resilience. And this resilience guide is split up into 10 chapters. It mirrors very closely the book that we put out that Christian wrote, The Resilience Breakthrough. You can see the 10 chapters there. I may even see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Start with the relationship, building a resilient family, flip the switch, emotional fuel. Then it goes through the 4 sources of resilience, the power of a future promise, and then we end with a chapter called Self-Grace. All of these chapters have very important principles and concepts surrounding resilience that really will help anybody that digs into them. Every single one of these chapters is going to have a video as a part of it that helps explain what it's talking about. You can see right here, there's a video that I could click that would give an overview of the parent guide, but I'm going to drill in actually to this chapter 2, where it says building a resilient family. Just to give you an idea, when you click into one of these chapters, like I said, obviously you're going to have a description there, a table of contents. We even have an audio version so that, it can be just listened to rather than read. And then we have a video that gives a really solid explanation of what this chapter is about and the kind of the overarching concept. We're going to watch a little bit of this video just to give you an idea of what that sounds like.
Here at WhyTry, for many years, our focus, our work, and our mission has been in the field of human resilience. We've spent countless hours observing and studying difficult challenges and social problems that impact resilience. In our book, The Resilience Breakthrough, we've published our findings and our theory that we believe to be a true breakthrough in understanding how resilience can be taught. As part of that theory, we've identified not only the attributes of resilience, but what we believe to be 4 universal sources of resilience that people tap into in moments of challenge. We call the 4 sources relational resilience, street resilience, resource resilience, and rock bottom resilience, street resilience.
Now he's going to go in a little deeper about those, but Jason, briefly gave you a description, and you'll be able to look at that on your own. But I'm going to fast forward a little bit to help kind of solidify this concept and show you what this chapter is all about and the type of things that this will discuss.
4 sources of resilience. Have you ever played with matches before? If you ask that question to kids, you usually will see their attention engaged immediately. When you light a match, typically it will burn for a moment, and then either you blow it out, or if you're in a breeze, the wind will blow it out easily. That's because that very small flame can't withstand the adversity of a little breeze or a small puff of your breath. So what about a campfire? Have you ever sat around a campfire before? What happens if you blow on a campfire? Can you blow it out? Or if a strong breeze comes, will it put it out? A campfire is quite a bit different than that little match. It doesn't just go out when you blow on it. In fact, if you blow on it or a breeze comes along, it does the opposite. It gets bigger. So what's the difference between the campfire and the match? An obvious difference is the size of the flame. And this is because of the fuel. The match has only a little stick and some chemical to ignite it, where the fire has 4 big logs that provide fuel. So if the fire represents our resilience, the logs represent the fuel that we need to be resilient. The 4 sources: relational, street, resource, and rock bottom. For most of us, in moments of challenge, we will gravitate towards one of those 4 sources. But is one enough? Think about our fire. Is 1 log enough to keep it going? Next time you have a campfire, try this experiment. Start your fire with a bunch of small sticks or kindling, and then put 1 log on the fire and watch what happens. You'll likely find that the small sticks will create a fire that will begin to burn the log, but as the sticks burn up, the log will eventually go out and you'll be left with a half-burned log. For a good, strong fire, you need at least 2 logs next to each other. And the more you have, the stronger the base of that fire will be and the longer it will burn. So just like that log isn't enough to keep the fire burning by itself, our resilience won't be enough if we only tap into 1 source. We need at least 2. And if we can tap into even more, all 4 of the sources, our resilience will increase and our ability to deal with challenges will go up.
I'm going to pause it there for sake of time. You get the idea, though. What I really love about this is that these chapters build and use the same approach we use in our curriculum, where we use metaphors and visuals and videos and activities to try to bring this to life in a way that people can understand, including the parents and the families that you work with. So in this chapter, you have that video, and then as you go through chapter by chapter, you will see that it is filled with content, with explanations. It has suggestions on how to teach and put these things into practice in your own life. They're very practical. And then not only does it give suggestions on how to put it into practice in your own life, but it's also centered on how to teach it to your family and teach it to your kids in this instance. And so it's really great stuff here. Some of the other things that you will see are a part of it are things like reflection questions, boosters, which I'm going to dive into a little bit more in just a moment. At the bottom of every chapter, you will see there'll be at least 1 activity and 1 video that parents could use with their families. I'm going to dive into, actually, since Bruce talked about relational resilience, we'll go there. And so as you go into this, you're going to see that the chapter is going to introduce that metaphor about relational resilience. And then, as I said, each one of these chapters will even have a booster. A booster is basically additional information that will allow, and it's like a bonus chapter that will give additional ideas of what it means to use relational resilience. And like, for example, with relational resilience, I believe the booster is centered on learning how to take timeouts from electronics and spend time with your family, being emotionally connected with your kids. And so there's just some really hands-on and practical ideas here. And like I said, at the end of every chapter, you will see there's activities that if you click on these links, it will take to descriptions on how to do these activities with your kids, as well as videos. Here is a video link to the very video that Bruce shared in this webinar, the Rick and Dick Hoyt. So lots of great stuff that you will find in this parent's guide. Notice here at the top, it has a translate button. It can easily translate into Spanish as well. And so all in all, it's just a solid resource. As an educator, as an administrator, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could use a resource like this. We have many organizations that have tapped into it and made it a link on their website for parents that they direct them to. We have a lot of our users that will personally give and invite this link to their families in more of an invitation basis, right? Not more as a personal invitation that I'm sure, you know, the families appreciate and probably listen to more than just going to a link on a website. And you could even take and create parent nights or classes and use this as a curriculum with parents. The bottom line is that a lot of the things that, you know, really create barriers for our students, you know, a lot of times they happen outside of school and they happen in the home. And while a lot of those things are outside of our control, there are resources out there that we can tap into to try to build that foundation and help them develop understanding in their own homes and not solely rely on the schools or the other organizations to do it. So pretty good stuff. Any questions, any additional comments, Jason or Bruce, about the parent guide?
Well, I do want to mention two quick things. One, first of all, this was when we released this during the pandemic, it was actually fairly quickly included in a national mental health registry. It was pretty immediately recognized as a very useful resource for parents. So it's a great resource for schools to connect with families through all the examples Corey said. If you'll stick around just a minute longer, we do want to give you access to this parent guide. It does, we'll talk about that in just another minute. But I'll put up a link that you can follow to get access to this parent guide so you can include it and use it the way Corey described. Bruce, do you have any additional comments on the parent guide before we share that link?
No, I mean, it can be for a single adult. It's great for parents, and if a single parent or both parents, and then with their kids, but I think anybody could benefit from the guides. And I can see the application. You're a counselor, or you're having an interview, and give that out to parent. I can see you're having an IEP. I can see in our school district where we live, there's 45,000 families. They had a committee that looked at the parent guide and chose to send it out to all 45,000. So there's just a lot of opportunity to make that community connection and give, like Corey said, everybody's always looking for positive resources. So, and I'm a grandpa. I use this with my grandkids. They love it. We've done, matter of fact, on that relational resilience, we did the activity draw. I think it's called Draw to Win. But anyway, they love that activity. They ate it up. Anyway, that's good enough.
Corey, if you want to stop your share, I'm going to put up the link. What we've got is a QR code. For those that are unfamiliar with QR codes, it's a weird looking box here that you can point. If you turn on your camera on a smartphone and point it at that image, it'll bring up a link. And if you'll follow that link, it'll take you to the page that it will capture your information, and then we'll reach out to you and give you the official link for the parent guide. Now, one thing I want to mention, the parent guide is technically part of a suite of resilience material. And so we've tried to provide some context on the parent guide and on the WhyTry approach. But we do ask you to go through just a brief demo on the WhyTry approach to make sure you have a foundation before you use this parent guide. But then once you go through that, and it doesn't take very long, we will actually give you the parent guide, a link to the parent guide that you can include in your school resources, and you can use as a direct connect for your parents and families. And the idea is, all three of us on as panelists are educators, and we all have dealt with this throughout our career. One of the biggest challenges that you have as educators is we tend to make progress in our schools or in our classrooms, but if we don't have families that are on the same page with some of the concepts that we're teaching to be able to reinforce those, or if you have overwhelmed parents that maybe never learned some of these skills themselves, then there is sometimes there's a disconnect, and it can feel like kids are taking almost a step back on some of these concepts when they go home or break. And so the parent guide, the idea was we have this tremendous resource to try to finally put tools in the hands of parents that will supplement what we're likely already teaching within our schools and class or facilities. And so we were really excited when we found out we were going to be able to give you access to this. Josephine, there's your contact info again right there. Hopefully you can see that. Any other questions? We've still got a fair amount of you on. Any other questions we can answer here to wrap up? So we are super excited for you to get access to this. And even if you currently have the WhyTry material, if you currently have the WhyTry program, I think still follow the link and follow the QR code, and then we'll be able to kind of arrange through that. And a program director from your state will get you the link for the parent guide.
And Jason, just one thing, we have under the umbrella of WhyTry, we have two programs. We have our WhyTry, which we call, you've already mentioned this, the skills of resilience. And then the lesson I taught, or short lesson, came from what we call resilience for youth, which is the source of resilience. They're totally different content, but they complement each other. But then, it's really nice to have those skills and source, and then the parent guide makes it, like you said, a real nice suite along with the book.
Yeah, and Jan asked a question, is this being recorded? And I apologize for not acknowledging that earlier. Yes, it's absolutely being recorded. I know there was a lot of material in here throughout. And so if you want to review this, or even if you want to take this back and share this with your staff, if you go to our website, whytry.org, and then click on the link at the top where it says webinars, that gives you a record there. Corey just put it in the, Corey, you shared that with hosts and panelists. If you can share that with everyone. Oh, there you go.
I'll get it up there.
Perfect. There's a link that Corey's going to throw in. He just did in the chat, whytry.org/webinars. And that will take you to a record of all of our webinars. There's a lot to dig through, a ton of great information. This one will likely be posted within the next, probably at the latest tomorrow morning, potentially by this evening, depending on how long it takes to process through the YouTube processing software. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, then I think it would only be appropriate to play us out with some music. Before we do that, huge thank you to all of you that showed up. We went through, just for your information, we went through this week a list of people we're going to be inviting to participate in webinars, a very large list of people outside the WhyTry organization that are experts in their fields. We have some very exciting topics and individuals that we're going to be covering over the next quarter and into Q1 of next year. What we would ask you to do, if you feel like these have been helpful or valuable for you, please invite some colleagues to come check out some of the future ones of these that we'll be holding. We love to have new guests come on and become part of this great community that is all committed to trying to help our kiddos be more resilient. And so thank you for showing up. Big thank you to you for all that you're doing. Again, this is another very interesting school year that we're in, and the educators that I know and love just continue to impress me with how they handle challenges and really demonstrate and model resilience themselves. Any parting thoughts, Bruce or Corey, before I fire up the jukebox?
You just kind of said it, but I'd like to thank everybody that's on. I can tell they're great educators, and thank you for what you've been doing. And we love connecting and teaming with you in any way we can. Thank you very much.
All righty then. Well, thank you all. Hope you all have a great afternoon. We definitely love and appreciate you. Please come back again, bring some guests, and don't hesitate to hit that QR code and reach out to us.